Hey guys, what is going on with the Ultimatum South Africa? I feel like I'm in the twilight zone while I'm watching it because in the original version of the Ultimatum, which was first taped in the US, these couples are just trying to like have an experience, a bunch of couples go into the show thinking, hey, like, do we get married, do we not? One person is pushing for it, the other person isn't yet ready, and so they go into this experience and then they do the trial marriages with other people, but not like with the mentality that they could leave their current partner for this person. It's just, hey, like, let's just see, what's potentially out there. Like, how do I feel being away from the person that wants me to marry them or that I don't want to marry? Like, it's kind of like that. They're not like making out with other people. They're not sleeping with other people, right? So when I tuned into the Ultimatum South Africa, I thought it would be about the same thing, but I was in for a rude awakening because the Ultimatum South Africa is a completely different ballgame. It feels like these people on the show are really truly like, when they do the swap, they're really thinking, hey, can I leave my person for this person? Like they are banging like screen doors and hurricanes. They are making out like it's nothing. I do not have the words for it, you guys. Like, it's a lot. I'm only 5 episodes in, so as of right now, I can only tell you my impressions of the first 5 episodes, but wow. And, okay, spoiler alert, Kanya, at first I was like, I love how frank she is. I love how she doesn't try to be dainty and soft for the men or anything like that. But after a couple episodes, I was like, oh, this girl's just mean in general. Like, to everybody. So I was rather disappointed in her, although at first I did, I liked like her biting personality, but I digress. Let's get into the recap, you guys. Again, I've watched only the first 5 episodes and I'm actually on my way to the airport after filming this. I'm going to be doing a little weekend trip to Barcelona with some friends. So you're going to have to wait until I come back. So like Monday for a recap of the last 4 episodes of the season, which hurts me because I want to be up to date too, but alas, c'est la vie. So episode 1, my first impressions, I was kind of shocked that Ruth would stay with a man who would hide her from his family for 2 years. I don't think she's even met his friends either. Very strange. I would not put up with that past about 3-4 months. So Isaac's excuse is that they are in a long distance relationship and have only seen each other a grand total of 8 months within the 2 years. So in his culture, you don't present a woman unless she's going to be, your wife. So you're engaged or whatever, which I understand because remember, y'all, I am African as well. I'm Kenyan. And so I get it. Although I feel like, well, probably because I'm Canadian more so than Kenyan, having grown up in Canada. It used to be like that with my parents, but they have definitely adapted and everything like that the longer they've been in Canada. But I still get it, just from a cultural shared background perspective. So he says that he does her relationship all the time, especially because she never asks him how his day is going. Like, she seems to be a little bit self-absorbed, and he wants a woman who like has this kind of like, energy towards him. Like, how are you? Like, concern and everything like that, and a genuine interest in how he's doing. And I do find it rather strange that she doesn't check in on him, but it kind of seems like one of those cyclical issues. Maybe she used to, but then she started getting like resentful over the fact that she hasn't like met anyone in his life and that the relationship isn't progressing towards marriage really. So she's like, why should I check in on him if he doesn't take me seriously? He doesn't deserve that, basically. Next, there's Lindele and Sizekele. Sizekele is typically referred to as Siza, so I'm going to start using that. They're very adorable to me, and I find her to be so beautiful. She looks like a doll to me, and her voice and just her demeanor, like her personality. I really love her. I think she's my fave girl out of all of them. So he gave her the ultimatum after 3 months of dating, and they've been dating for 6 months total now, and that's why they're on the show, which I find to be a little extreme. And I was like, oh, like, is he like an older man or something like that? Is that why? Like, he feels like his clock is ticking? No, the man is what, like 29 years old, 30 years old, something like that. Like, it's a little excessive. And I can see why SZA is, hesitant to marry someone that she's only known for a couple of months at this point. They're still in the honeymoon phase. She's young, he's young, like, he can stand to calm down a little bit. He got really weird when the experiment started, like, it was he who brought her there. Like, okay, we gotta get married. But then as soon as it starts and they start to meet other people, that she wants to come back and like debrief with him and everything, because they are in a relationship after all. She's calling him babe, which is normal. He's like, no, please refrain from calling me babe. And she's like, what? And then she's like, I just want you to know I love you. He's like, please refrain from telling me you love me. Like, he just became so cold and like clinical about the entire experience. And I feel like that's going to come back to bite him in the ass because listen, she's doing this for him to prove that she really is in this relationship and like she loves him and everything like that. And she wants to let him know as well throughout this experiment. And he's rejecting that. Meanwhile, she is gorgeous, and I think that a lot of other guys are going to be interested by her. So like the way he's acting now is going to come back to bite him in the ass. I think he's totally going to regret it. Next, there's Neketeko, who gets jealous seeing men fawn over his girl Kanya. So he tries to pull her aside and tell her to wait for him to get his life together so that he can propose to her. And she says that she's tired of his charm and excuses. And I'm really, really glad that she stood her ground, because a lot of guys will always have some sort of an excuse for why they're not going to propose. And she's heard it, and they've been together a couple of years now. So at this point, she's done, and she's seeing that, hey, like, like other guys are interested in me, and other guys are more ready than my man. And, this shows me that like I will be fine without him. Right. So I love that she's continuing on with that. Now in episode 2, I didn't have too many notes. Things got really emotional when Tabi ran away crying during the mixer because her boyfriend Genesis had been flirting a little bit too hard with like all the women there. And that's been a problem in their relationship for a while, that he is a very flirty person. And I gotta be honest, I don't like these types of guys. To me, they scream low self-esteem and desperate for validation. When someone is in a relationship but they get off on flirting with other people, it tells me that they're not used to people finding them attractive, or people speaking to them, or people being nice to them. And so they're just so desperate to seduce people, because it proves to them that they're okay in some shape or form. So I don't know how she puts up with it. God bless her, but it could not be me. So after she goes off running, Aiden comes out to comfort her. And I felt at this point that it was safe to say that they were going to be matching up with each other, but ultimately they don't end up matching with each other, which, kind of disappointed me. By the way, Aiden and his girlfriend were really like quiet. They almost didn't exist throughout this season of the show, to be honest with you. They were very calm. Again, like I said at the top of the episode, a lot of the other people, when they did the switches, they were like super physical with their new people. They were like boning here, there, everywhere. They were making out. But Aiden and his girlfriend, they kept a lot of respect for each other, and I really, really love that for them. Unfortunately, Tabi isn't the only one that ran away traumatized by seeing her partner hit it off with other people. In fact, Isaac is next to storm off, but unfortunately for him, no one goes out to check on him. So he has to kind of, let back into the mixer all alone. Then as we head into episode 3, Kanya, her mean side starts coming out. So they are trying to match up and see who wants to do the experiment with who. And so when it's her turn to decide on a person, they're like, oh, so how did you feel? Blah, blah. She's like, I find the guys really boring. This is the only one that doesn't bore me. I was like, girl, you don't have to be mean for no reason, but listen, whatever. Okay, like at this point, I still kind of was like, okay, like she's got a cheeky personality. Maybe she doesn't like mean things the way that they come off. Maybe it's just very sarcastic, So all the couples match up and everything like that. There were some rejections and redirections, but that's okay. At the end, everybody found a new match. And it kind of just felt like these guys wanted to cheat already, like night 1, because some of them started talking about, oh, we should shower together. Like, I think I'm going to fall quickly for you. Like, I feel so lucky with you. It's like, oh, like it kind of feels like, again, these guys, they're just so desperate to be charmers and to have like women fall under their spell and stuff. It's giving low self-esteem across the board, and it just gives me the ick. I don't like it. I'll be honest with you guys here. I see a lot of these types of guys here in Paris. When I was living in Canada, we have a lot of like African men and African people, right? Like myself, but like myself, like maybe they're born in the country, but they mainly grow up in Canada, So like the attitude of them versus the ones who actually grew up in these African countries is night and day. And I noticed that here in Paris as well, like with the African men here, they're just like the ones that I'm seeing on this show. Like they really love to like charm women. They'll come and they'll like, did I ever tell you the story of the Senegalese man? I went to like a salsa dancing class. I say this all the time, but if you're new here, Mondays I do bachata classes, Tuesdays I do salsa dancing classes. So I was doing a salsa class and I met this guy who's like Senegalese, and he's just there with like his shades, and it's dark in the bar. It's like in the restaurant bar. It's like 10 p.m., midnight, something like that. And he's just there in his shades and stuff. And so he's like, oh, hi, how are you? Can I take you on a date? And I'm like, listen, not my usual type, but I do have to change my type maybe someday. So let's see, So we go on a date, and he comes in. Again, it's like 8, 9 p.m. And he comes in his glasses, and they're Cartier glasses. And so he's like, hey, I got a surprise for you. He gave me Cartier glasses, not Cartier glasses, okay? Cartier glasses, aka they were fake. Like they are just so like en français on dit les beaux parleurs. Like they're just such like Rico Suaves, you know? And I really don't like that because again, to me it screams low self-esteem. It screams I want you to fall for me, but I'm emotionally unavailable. Like this is just a game to me. And it really was for this one because guess what? He was married. He had a wife in Senegal and he had 3 kids in Senegal. Well, he was out here, you know, trying to wheel and deal on little old me, you know? So I abruptly cut that date short and kept it moving. Anyway, these guys on Ultimatum South Africa are giving me PTSD, let's just say, to the African men here in Paris. So anyway, like I said, these people were really rushing to get like physical and intimate on the first day. So I was disappointed that my girl SZA made out with Nikateko on that first night. It really wasn't cool. I know it was a dare for a game, but I really didn't like that. I felt like, come on now, you were just telling your man you love him. Like, what is this? Ruth and Nola have a very, very like, you know, emotionally intimate night where he opens up about losing his mom at about 3 years old and she died on his birthday, which I think has to be the most devastating thing ever. I can't imagine ever celebrating. Like, I wonder how he celebrates his birthday. Does he celebrate his birthday? It's like, you've got something to celebrate, something to grieve at the same time. Oh, my heart broke for him when he shared that. And then he said that, like, you know, that's why he values women so much because, like, he never had the love of his mom. And so, like, women are a treasure. Meanwhile, he's ready to leave his girl Lebo for Ruth immediately and to bone her that night. You see what I'm saying, y'all. When people are just so desperate to seduce, they say just anything. You really cannot take them at face value, you know? Like, I was really disgusted that he would use that story of his mom that way and then turn around and disrespect a woman, you know? Like, it really disgusted me. Lebo is a really nice girl, okay? And she's obviously a girl with very low self-esteem. She doesn't really smile. She has sad eyes. And she's always talking about, like, expecting the worst and expecting disappointment because that's all she experiences in life, according to her, you know? So to see him do this to her, like, is just so heartbreaking in my opinion, you know? And so, you know, as well, you know, just before they get to boning, they talk about how like they could potentially fall in love with each other. And I'm like, this is not the way it goes down on the Ultimatum US. Like what was like the breakdown for how things were going to work on Ultimatum South Africa? Or is it just a completely different culture? You know what I mean? Because I'm still shook. Like this is the first day, you guys. This is not a weekend. This is not 2 weeks in. This is the first 24 hours in, and they're already at this point after being in relationships with other people for several years. Like, why? Like, it's just so wild to me. It really is quite jarring. Meanwhile, Kanya, the meanie girl, she is talking to some people about SZA. SZA is the girl who linked up with Kanya's ex, and she says that SZA is fake. She's a crybaby. She doesn't want to comfort her or anything like that when she cries because she feels as though that's just something that she does for attention, and she doesn't want to be responsible for her. And it kind of feels obvious that she is just against SZA because SZA has matched up with her ex, and she obviously feels some sort of a rivalry or a jealousy or like an anger about that. Now, Isaac wines and dines Kanya meanwhile, and then he orders her flowers that will arrive at the house during the dinner date that he has prepared for the two of them. And basically, it seems like he wants to leave his girl for her. Like, oh my God, these men are so trifling. Imagine dating someone for years, issuing an ultimatum, and they're stringing you along like, yeah, maybe we'll get married. Meanwhile, within 24 to 48 hours, they're ready to bone the next girl, make out with the next girl, and tell the next girl on camera that they're almost ready to leave you for them. Like, oh, please, Lord, save me from the humiliation. Save me from the heartbreak. I would not be able to take this, you guys. My heart is too weak for these types of men. It really, really is. Like, this is just the epitome of disrespect. It's brutal. This show is not for the faint of heart. This experience is not for the faint of heart. It is brutal out there in SA. When they come back from the dinner, Kanya sees the flowers and she's super appreciative of it, and the two of them just make out, and then they close the door, and I'm like, oh, don't tell me Kanya and Isaac are boning too. Everybody is boning on this show. Like, oh! I know they're saying it's my ex, but like, it's just an experience. It's not supposed to be really your ex. You're here to see if you want to get married at the end of the experience. Meanwhile, you're boning other people, you're making out. Listen, again, this might just be a cultural difference, okay? Maybe this is normal. I can't judge too harshly, but just from me, from a Canadian perspective, like, I can't imagine. Like, I'm shooketh. Now, in episode 4, I've got to say, I'm just so sad at all of this cheating. Kanye and Isaac just waking up, like a couple. Then she gives him a lap dance and everything like that. Like, this stuff would be really devastating to me. And then meanwhile, you've got Ruth, who's talking about how she's fallen for Nola and always wants him to be close to her. Like, if he's like in the kitchen doing something and she's in bed, she wants him to come over because like the distance is too much for her. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy, you guys. I do want to ask something. Maybe you're South African, but I find it really interesting how the layouts are of this apartment. So for example, they'll have their kitchen and then facing the kitchen is the bed. So I'm like, oh, are these studio apartments? Okay, no problem. But then you'll see, like, sometimes like as they go from bed to kitchen, you'll see that in between there's a hallway that leads to the living room. So I'm like, well, why is the bed next to the kitchen and the living room is in the back of this apartment? That's very interesting to me because I'm just thinking of like the fumes from when you cook, It's like typically, for example, here in my apartment, I don't know, well, you can't see the mirror here, but hang on, let me show you. You see this right here? This is a door. And behind this door, there's a little hallway. And straight down the hallway is my bedroom. And then to the right is my washroom. So typically when I'm cooking here, because just in front of me that what you can't see is my kitchen. So when I'm cooking here, I close this door because the last thing you want is for your bedroom to smell like the food that you've been cooking all day. You know what I mean? Or that you cooked for dinner, this, that, or the other. So I find it funny that they purposely put the bed next to the kitchen. I find that very, very interesting, not to judge, but it's very interesting how things are so different, and I wonder what their reasoning for it is. Maybe they're like, I don't want my sofa to smell like my food, something like that. I don't know. But I do find that really interesting. It's always so fun to watch like these international shows just to see how different, life is and architecture is in other parts of the world. Lebo and Aiden, well, on Aiden's side, it was kind of more of a cheeky thing. On Lebo's side, it was more of an insecure thing. They decide to go out and see what the other couples might be up to in their bungalows. All the bungalows are kind of like, one next to the other. And they've got these big windows. So why not go creeping, become some peeping Toms, they decide. And when they get to the bungalow shared by Lebo's ex, Nola, and Ruth, she freezes because she sees the two of them in bed together and she sees them holding hands as well. And then they see or hear her outside. And so they go and they're like, oh my God, like what's happening? And it's this whole confrontation. And so Lebo accuses them of holding hands and Nola denies it. He is a full-blown liar. And then he also gaslights her on top of that. And then Ruth comes out and then Lebo asks her, Ruth, were you guys holding hands? And Ruth tells the truth immediately. So I was kind of like, look, this girl who doesn't even know you is telling you the truth. Meanwhile, this man that you want to marry is lying to your face and making you feel crazy and stupid. I really don't like that guy now. Like, he told a very sob story about his mom that had me feeling like he could be a genuine person. But at the end of the day, he's not a genuine person because he never told the truth to his girl. And he knows his girl is fragile and he's still acting this way. Disgusting to me personally. So after witnessing this, Lebo says in her confessional that it was disappointing, but she's grown used to disappointment. Listen, she's just like such an Eeyore. And here's the thing, Lebo, I think you need to work on yourself. I think you need to be single, work on your self-esteem because sorry, but her personality is not attractive. Like, she reminds me of Eeyore, the cartoon, from Winnie the Pooh. She's just roaming around from place to place like this. She's like, every time something bad happens to her, for example, when she was rejected at the matchup, it hurt to be rejected at the matchup, but in life, I've just been disappointed so much that I just expect disappointment. And then again, when she sees her man trifling, holding hands with another woman in bed, and then lying to her face, she goes, it hurts that he was holding hands with her and lying to my face, but again, I'm always expecting to be disappointed. So here I am, disappointed. But it doesn't hurt too much because I'm always expecting to be disappointed. Like, that's not an attractive attitude. That's not an attractive personality. And at the end of the day, life mirrors what you expect. So if you're expecting the worst, you will always get the worst. But if you're expecting the best, when I tell you, you will always get the freaking best. Okay? So I really do hope that she picks herself up, right? and then, maybe get some help for that. Like maybe she needs medication for depression. I don't know if she's depressed or not, but it seems like she is. And just like changes her attitude. Like I feel like life will look a lot better for her eventually, because she is a beautiful girl. She's a nice girl. So I don't see why she would have any problem, The next day we see Kanya and Isaac waking up in bed, kissing, and then they go to the balcony to have some morning coffee or breakfast, and they see SZA and Nikiteko like doing piggybacks on the golf course or something like that. To be honest, I felt like that looked a little staged. I can't imagine the two of them deciding to do that like bright and early in the morning. Like it's too early for all that nonsense. Kanya says that she's disappointed that they got close so quickly, but it's kind of like, well, girl, you were just making out with your man. So you guys have gotten just as close. Let's calm it down. Next, Kanya goes off to meet Isaac's family and friends, and I just would have been so devastated if I were Ruth, because she's been with that man for 2 years. He still won't let her meet his people. Meanwhile, Isaac has Kanya meeting them within days. Listen, the old adage always rings true. If he wanted to, he would. But things take a turn for the worse when Kanya starts feeling like Isaac's authenticity and his motives for like charming her and being in this experience are not exactly pure. And I don't know what sets her off there. I think it's because his friends started asking it, about like her cooking and cleaning and just some other stuff like that. Like if she's basically going to be like his mom or his employee if they were to get married. And Kanya's not that kind of girl. And listen, I'm team Kanya on this. I would just kind of like roll my eyes if a man had the audacity to ask like if I'm going to be cooking and cleaning for him and he's not paying all my bills, like, if we're both working and if we're both paying the bills, this, that, and the other, we're both cooking and cleaning. Okay, I'm not going to be doing extra. So I could see why she would be disgusted by that, to be honest with you. This is not the 1960s anymore. You can't ask for a woman to be traditional when you're not, able to be traditional yourself. And then when they get back home, he has the same discussion with her about cleaning and cooking, things like that. And she says, so what are you looking for? Are you looking for a wife or a mom? And I said, yes, girl, that's exactly it. It feels like the guys keep on saying this sort of thing. And so like her, I'm tired of the men expecting the women to do it all, because at the end of the day, these men are not expecting these women to stay at home and take care of these things. They're expecting these women to do these things, to have these extra responsibilities on top of working just like these men work, and I find that to be very ridiculous, and I find that to be very unfair. Then Isaac says, well, I just want to get to the bottom of this because I see a future with you and I want to know. A future? You're here to see if you want to marry your girl that you came in here with. Like, what do you mean you see a future with Kanya? You've known her for days. You've known Ruth for years. Like, what? Like, Kanya is here to see if her man's going to marry her. Like, what is this? Again, it feels like the experience has a completely different meaning here in South Africa. And then he brings up the fact that he's always the one that has to do the dishes in the home. And so they pan to the kitchen having like all these dirty dishes in the sink and whatnot. And she's like, well, did I tell you to do the dishes? That's your own problem. You took it upon yourself, so do the damn dishes then. Which, okay, like I wonder like if there was some sort of an arrangement, or maybe Isaac wants the dishes to be done like before bed, but like Kanya's someone who prefers to do the dishes in the morning. I really would have loved to get some more information on how the dishes were currently being handled. You know what I mean? Because maybe Kanya does do the dishes as well, but not as quickly as Isaac likes for them to be done. And so he therefore does them first. I don't think she necessarily never does the dishes, because at the end of the day, this is a woman who I believe, lives on her own or whatever, or with her guy. So like, obviously, like, I don't think she doesn't absolutely do anything, to be honest with you. And then at the end of the episode, you've got a conversation between Genesis and Courtney, where Courtney basically tells Genesis that she doesn't think that he and Tabi are a good match. And to me, it kind of felt like overstepping, to be honest with you. You don't know these people enough to be giving that sort of information. And people can say the same thing about you and your man who's been stringing you along for 7 years, like, come on now. But then again, Genesis and Tabi have also been together, stringing it along for 7 years too. So maybe she's right, but I feel like if she's right about them, then it applies to her as well, because they're in the same kind of relationship, right? And now let's head over to the final episode that I've watched so far, episode 5, you guys. Things really start heating up, and Kanya, girl, your mask came all the way off and you were just way too mean in this episode. At the top of the episode, you've got Isaac, who vents to Lindele about Kanya refusing to take care of the home. And then Tabi decides, okay, well, while these guys have their conversation, I'm going to head over to Kanya's place and talk to her about how she's feeling, like her side of things. And basically, Kanya says that she's disgusted by the fact that Isaac wants to split the bill. She's like, when he does groceries, this, that, and the other, like he wants me to pay half of it, blah, 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 which again, I figured that that was the case because I feel like Kanya's a type of girl who wouldn't mind cooking and doing these things if the guy was upholding his end, which is like to pay for these things. You know what I mean? Because again, why should she work, pay half the bills, and then cook for all the time? You know what I mean? And do all the cleaning, this, that, and the other. It just doesn't make sense. And she's not a girl that's going to accept that, which I totally, totally understand. But if she wants for him to pay everything and then she also doesn't want to cook and she also doesn't want to clean, then she's just being, crazy on her end. But again, we don't really get the full details of what exactly it is that she expects in a relationship dynamic. You know what I mean? So it's just really hard to tell at this point. Next, we see Ruth's family meet Nola, and her family just does not trust him. They feel like he is just a charmer, and I'm glad that they were able to see through him because that really is all it is at the end of the day. And they think that it's weird that he's so ready to ditch his long-term relationship for her after only knowing her a couple of days. And remember, this is the guy who lied to his girlfriend's face and gaslit her, so like they are on point about him. Meanwhile, Genesis and Courtney sit down to talk about their relationship deepening a bit. It seems like Genesis, again, it feels like Genesis is in competition with the other guys. It feels like the guys made a pact to like bone these girls or something like that. Like, oh, or maybe like it's like them being like, oh, well, I want to be the only one that did this. I want to be the top dog. Like there's something off here. And it feels like they're very inauthentically pushing for like a physical connection, and it feels like Genesis is frustrated that that's not happening for him, right? And it feels like he equates that with like emotional bonding. So like they sit down to talk about things and he's kind of frustrated about that, and then they announce that they're officially dating, which kind of gave me whiplash because I'm like, where the hell did that come from? You guys don't have any kind of chemistry. It's very strange, and I am just completely lost. Meanwhile, Toby says that Genesis is making excuses for not marrying her, and he claims that it's his money that he needs to get up in order to be able to like pay her dowry price and like, have a wedding and everything like that. And she's like, okay, well, he can't save for that. Meanwhile, he can save for all these other things he wants in life. It's just not making any sense. I feel like he just doesn't want this that badly, which, listen, I think is the truth because he's been with her for 7 years at this point. Like he would have been able to save within 7 years for something if he truly were serious. Anyway, while she's meeting up with her family alongside Lindele, she acts like she's super in love with him, and her family tells her to just chill out because she barely knows Lindele, and they're in a bubble. Like they haven't experienced each other in the real life, only in like, this closed off environment. So like she doesn't actually know she's in love with him, and her sister doesn't trust him because he's an actor. And I'm like, yes, girl, like he might just be here for his publicity and his his career, to boost his acting career or whatever. Meanwhile, SZA gets to meet Nikateko's mom via Skype. And it turns out that Kanya traumatized Nikiteko, according to his mom. She's like, Kanya's such a mean woman. She's such a bitter woman. She's so harsh. And I was like, oh, girl, like bite your tongue. Why don't you, And so she says that she's very selfish. So listen, what Isaac's saying about Kanya may actually be true, that she expects to be given everything, but she doesn't want to give anything in return, which, is just impractical, right, for a relationship. So, okay, I'm starting to like lean over towards Team Isaac then at this point, because Kanya, you're not cleaning, you're not cooking, and you want this man to pay everything. You know what I mean? Like, what, at the end of the day, like, there's a yin and a yang, and at this point, you just want someone to be all the yin, and you kind of just want to be there too. And it just doesn't work that way, babe. It just does not work that way. Maybe support him emotionally, something, right? And Nikateko's mom is saying that Kanya does not want to give anything in a relationship. She just wants to receive everything. Isaac is feeling really, really burnt by the fact that he chose Kanya over Lebo, who had initially proposed that they match up together. And so he decides to meet up with her and saying, wow, I can't believe I was so stupid in rejecting you. We could have been the greatest couple ever. Will you forgive me? Sorry, but it's too late. Lebo's too nice, to entertain this conversation and everything like that. It's not flattery. This man chose this girl because he thought she was more beautiful than you. And this girl feels like she's too good for him, and he knows that. And so now he's running back to you like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been a little bit too big for my britches. Like maybe I should have, quote unquote, settled for you, right? Absolutely not. Go back, keep getting tortured by that woman because it's what you deserve. That's how I would be. Like, no, there is no coming back if you choose someone else over me. All the guys then gather together to talk about how their relationships are going, and Nola hides the status of his actual relationship with Ruth, and then he goes home and bones her again. Again, this guy is very inauthentic, I feel really bad for his girlfriend. Meanwhile, Kanya, she for some reason calls SZA fatty fatty boom boom or something like that, like in her confessional, and it was just so mean. It came out of nowhere, in my opinion. Like, SZA has never been anything but like kind to the other women, so it feels like Kanye is very insecure and she's threatened by SZA at this point. And like I said, to me, SZA is the prettiest girl there. She is so beautiful, like, and it radiates from the inside out with her. She looks like a doll, like she truly does. She's just gorgeous. So for her to like say that was just really cruel and mean and just wow. And here's the thing. In Love or The Ultimatum South Africa, the first thing I noticed is that these men all tend to be, well, most of them tend to be thinner than the women. Like in Africa, they love themselves a curvy, thick, fat, whatever you want to call it, woman. Okay. So that is not an insult. Like, you know, if SZA's fat, whatever. If SZA's curvy, whatever. If SZA's chubby, whatever. Look at her. She is loved and adored, and her man is begging to marry her in 3 months. 3 months, 90 days. Meanwhile, you've been with your man for what, 2 years, a year and a half, and you're the one begging him to marry you. So don't get it twisted. She is that girl. Kanye then reveals that she met Isaac's family, and Ruth is jealous of that because, again, she's been with him for 2 years. She hasn't met a single person. She hasn't even been to his home. And in 2 weeks, Kanye managed to do all that. I would be raging too. Isaac then says that Nola isn't a serious person. He's just there to flirt. Like, you know, Nola's rubbing him the wrong way. And I do agree with that, but I kind of feel like that applies to Isaac too. He would be doing the same thing with Kanye if Kanye was letting him. Wasn't he ordering the flowers? Wasn't he making out with her and everything like that? It's just that he can't afford Kanye. And that's why he is now lashing out at the other men who are able to, you know, fulfill the desires of their new women and making out with them and like getting intimate with them. Meanwhile, Ruth denies doing things with Nola, which, you know, isn't cool. We know that they've boned at this point, and his girlfriend's right there. So like, I don't think it should be like lying like that. All the guys also then deny having slept with their matches, but we know that at least 2 of them have, or most likely 2 of them have. Again, the first one is Nola, and the second one, I actually thought that Isaac had hooked up with Kanye after the rose thing, because like they started making out in like the bathroom and they closed the door. So I'm like, okay, they might be boning on the bathroom floor or in the shower or something like that, but I digress. Meanwhile, Kanye claims that SZA might be getting used for sex by Nikateko because she and Nikateko have not been intimate since last September. And it just felt like she just put that out there to make SZA feel like ugly, cheap, used, and everything like that because she feels threatened by her. And she just kept on going after her, interrupting her, and just like making all these like snide remarks like on the side. It was really vile, disgusting the way she treated that girl. And SZA handled it so beautifully. She stayed very nice and patient throughout it all. And like, it just showed like, you know, how much better of a person she is at the end of the day than Kanye. In conversation with the man, Nikateko says that he wants to bang SZA because she's a lovely lady that inspires you to make love to her. Like, okay. The guys kind of laughed at that. They're like, wow, I'd love to meet a, you know, and it was kind of, you know, I don't know. It felt a little bit pretentious, to be honest with you, but I digress. Kanye then admits that she and Isaac have seen each other naked, but then she denies making out with him. So at that point, I'm like, okay, well, if you denied making out with him and we saw you making out with him, then I think you're hiding the fact that you boned him as well, girl. Isaac says that basically Kanye is just someone that you sleep with, but she's not wifey material at all, which I felt was a very degrading thing to say on camera. I feel like it's one thing to feel that way, but to just say that it was a bit rough. I feel like there's another way to say that. You know what I mean? Like, she's a fun girl, like, you know. But the way he said it was just very nasty, in my opinion. And again, I think it's because he's bitter that like she has certain financial expectations that he does not measure up to. Then her man, Nikateko, basically agrees and says that she's materialistic, like a gold digger and stuff like that. I'm like, Nikateko, do you even have money? You know, that's the thing with men. They'll accuse women of being materialistic gold diggers all the time, but they don't even have money like that. Like, they're just like regular, sometimes they're even poor, or sometimes they're just regular middle-class guys, just like the girl's a regular middle-class girl. Like, gold digging what? You know what I mean? Like, if a girl wants to be a gold digger, she will go for a full-blown millionaire. And that is very possible for a beautiful woman. Let me tell you that. Let me tell you that. And let me tell y'all, especially here in Europe, if you're a beautiful woman in Europe, men will beg to fly you places, to buy you jewelry, to treat you like a freaking goddess. Take that from me, okay? First-hand experience, okay? They will literally beg you, okay? So the idea that like you can have that and you're settling for a regular middle-class guy, like, stop it, get over yourself, like put the ego away. And I did see a preview on TikTok showing that he was going to accuse her of being materialistic gold digger. She's going to be like, oh, I'm a gold digger, but I'm with you. So I am really looking forward to seeing that episode actually play out, you guys. Then cut back over to the lady side, and Kanya really just got even nastier with SZA. And I felt really bad for SZA because she's talking about how she's starting to fall for Nikateko, although she still loves her boyfriend. And Kanya says that, like, listen, I've heard him laugh with you. I know his laugh. I've been with him long enough. Girl, you've been with him for a year. Let's calm down. And I could just tell you, his laugh with you is so fake. He's not being genuine, so you're falling in love with him, but is he falling in love with you? No. She was so threatened. Listen, I freaking hope that Nikateke, at the end of this experience, decides to not marry Kanya and decides that he wants to pursue something with SZA, okay? Because what the F, you know what I mean? I just don't want for him to propose to Kanya after the way that she's behaved. I think that she needs to be humbled, to be honest with you guys. And I kind of, at this point, I'm like, well, why is she even here if she's going to, like, attack other women for simply participating in the process? Because they all agreed to swap for a little bit and to explore new relationships and to put their own relationships in question. Maybe she's feeling as though they took things too far by actually trying to see if they could be together, like, outside of this experiment, which I do understand. But, like, the attack really wasn't warranted. It was a bit much. I feel like they could have had, like, a private conversation about things. And, like, I feel like Kanya could have been a lot more vulnerable about her insecurities, because that's all this is, right? It's insecurities at the end of the day, which is normal, right? I feel like anybody would feel insecure and threatened. Then back on the boys' side, Nola talks about how Ruth is always checking in on him, saying that she misses him when he's away, and Isaac is upset because she doesn't do that with him. Remember, that was a big concern of his, that she never asks how his day is going. And then he reveals that Ruth didn't even wish him a happy birthday. And I'm like, girl, why are you with this man at this point? If you don't care about how things are going for him, you can't even wish him a happy birthday. Like, damn. But at the same time, like, I'm like, okay, good for you that, like, you're kind of like, okay, well, you're not introducing me to your family friends. You're celebrating these things with, like, them. So I'm not even going to wish you anything. But if you're at that point, why even be with the guy? Just move on. It feels like a lot of, like, women especially don't realize that we live in a world with a population of like 7 billion people. There are billions and billions and billions of other men out there. If you're not being treated well, if you're not happy, move on. It's really that simple, dude. And then she's talking about, oh, like, I'm a beautiful girl, I deserve the best. That's the thing. Yes, you are, and yes, you do. But unfortunately, I know that you don't actually believe that, because when you believe that, you act accordingly, and you do not accept BS like this for 2 years, okay? And, again, from experience, when I was younger and when I was not as sure as myself, maybe I could have settled for this type of thing. But, like, I feel like being such a self-assured, self-realized, self-actualized woman at this point in my life, I don't accept anything that I don't want to. I'm very quick to walk away from BS. So, I can't relate to girls like this who will put up with this type of stuff forever. You know what I mean? Like, Ruth, when you actually believe that, you're going to act accordingly. But until now, it's just lip service. Although she lied to Lebo and everybody else earlier about not sleeping with Nola, she decides to pull Lebo aside and admit that the two of them have been sleeping with each other, and that it wasn't just once or twice. And Lebo was just super devastated by this. But again, she always expects disappointment. So she gets up, she thanks Ruth for telling her the truth, and then she walks off. And, again, I've just felt really, really, really bad for her. Like, she's obviously someone who is very fragile, and, I just hope that she has the strength and the courage to walk away from this, to be single for a while, maybe to get help, for her self-esteem, her mood, and everything like that. And then, tries again, like, at a later time when she's in a better place. Because, when you're in this place, it's very easy for people to play with you, to take advantage of you, to not be so attracted to you, because it's not an attractive way to be. But I digress. Anyway, you guys, that's a recap of the first 5 episodes of the Ultimatum South Africa. Again, this left me completely and utterly shook. You guys, I was not expecting for these people to be banging like that, to be making out like that. It wasn't like that in the US. Yeah, there were some couples that really got close, and I think maybe like a kiss or two, but this was something completely different. Like, these men are out here talking about, well, I could, I could see myself marrying you, to people they just met days ago. Like, they're so ready to leave these relationships, these long-term relationships, for a new person. Like, it's nuts. It's nuts. I had to catch my breath a couple of times. So for now, I'm really hoping that Kanya is confronted about her attitude, by the girls or something, because we're starting to see the other girls become disgusted with her attitude. I think Debbie, Toby, something like Tabby as well, is getting disgusted by the way in which Kanya treats SZA. So hopefully they stand together against this. The men are disgusted by the way she treats them. So I would love to see that. I would love to see Label leave her man and just walk away from this entire thing, because you should not still be looking for marriage from a man who would treat you this way. And yeah, I'm just excited to see how everything ultimately winds up playing out. I will be watching some things on the flight, so I will be ready to go, locked and loaded as soon as I return. But again, I won't be back until Monday, okay? In the meantime, let me know what you thought about the Ultimatum South Africa in general and these first 5 episodes that I've just recapped with you. That's all for now. And don't forget, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.